Hey y'all, welcome back. My name's Crystal, and I have another book chat video today. We're going to talk about books I've read over this past week, and I've read quite a few, so let's get going. Hope everyone's doing well. Thanks as always for checking in with me. But let's get going for what I finished. First up, They All Die Screaming by Kristopher, Triana. I read this for one of the prompts for the India Chords readathon. I used this for the ensemble cast, and it doesn't work for that prompt, so if you're needing something for that, if you're on team horror. This book, however, I'm just gonna say it wasn't quite for me, you know? So Kristopher, Triana, I know, is splatter, punky, extreme horror-ish, whatever word you like to use. He writes those sorts of books, and I don't always like those sorts of books, but you know, sometimes you think you can try something different, you know, kind of step out of a comfort zone or just try something new, and I was doing that with this, and the premise sounded really interesting, and it was. But so let's talk a little bit about what it was about. So in this story, we've got the main plot is that there is a outbreak, pandemic, whatever how you want to say it, of something called the Scream, and it is, I guess, some sort of virus that, you know, once you contract it, you begin to scream non-stop. You can't do anything but scream. You can't eat, you can't sleep, nothing. And it's, you know, popping up kind of here and there across the globe. And these early days, people are like, gosh, this is weird, what's going on? And some people are, in the early days, people are kind of just kind of killing themselves over it because they can't do anything but scream. Like it's awful. And then it starts to spread, right? And we've got this sort of kind of, I guess you can call it a ragtag group of folks that really are not the best people. You're following some very unlikable characters here. Our main character, Chuck, I think his name was Chuck, I'm forgetting. He's a deadbeat loser kind of guy. He's in his 40s. He just got fired from yet another job. He drinks all day. You know, he's not an upstanding guy, right? But he is our main character. So, all right, let's see what he gets into. And he's got kind of this group of this friend that's a weird conspiracy theory guy. So he gets wrapped up in all this virus and has all these, you know, thoughts about what's going on and how it came about, all that kind of good stuff. So you got that kind of thing. There's the bartender, of course, because he sits at the bar, drinks all day. There's the lady down the hall in his apartment, which he lives in a crappy apartment, of course. And she's got her own story. She's got her own baggage. And I don't know. The story goes from there, right? Now, also, you've got this, other storyline, which we follow a young kid, I think he's about 10-ish, who gets abducted from a mall by this skeezy old dude who basically takes him back to his farm and makes him work for him, and essentially it's kind of a slave labor kind of thing. And he's like, you're gonna work for me, kid. You know, it's what, you know, what in the world? And then you have pigs and stuff. I mean, it's a rundown kind of farm, but whatever. Now with this old guy who really makes his living on this farm by also kidnapping young women and selling them for meat. So that's his cash crop. That's his cash crop. Okay. So that's fun. That's fun. Eventually these stories converge, right? But let me tell you something. Nothing was held back in this story. Of course, you've got obscene violence, which is fine. Violence, no biggie, right? Because towards as this virus ramps up, the people that have the virus turn quite violent and attack people that don't have the virus. And there's some like crazy brutal murder, you know. That's fine. Like I said, there's some kinky sex. I mean, that's fine. You do you. You know what I mean? I mean, who knew what you could do with French fries? I mean, that's all I'm gonna say. But there is also, I'm just gonna say this as well, there is rape in this book, so just know that as well. But the one thing that I was like, really? Did we really have to do that? Did we really have to go that far? I just was like, man, who are you to write this? Not really, but it's, you know, it's kind of permanently stained in the brain right there. I'll just kind of tick that below of what that was. If you're interested in the what is the line that is drawn for me, you know. Now, look, ultimately, like I said, this book really wasn't for me. It was gross, and I don't know. I just was like, dude, whatever. Some people probably love it, and that is totally fine. I'm not totally even against this book personally, you know. It just wasn't for me. And that's fine. You know, I think sometimes you don't know until you try something. Will I read more by Triana? I don't know, maybe. I'm gonna have to see if this one thing is in it, you know what I mean? like is this something he puts in all of his books? Because I don't know if I can do that. Of course, they're mowing the yard outside. If you can hear that, apologies, but this is the time I have to film. Okay, so they all die screaming. Kristopher, Triana go in tippy-toeing. You know, if you're thinking it's not gonna be for you, you may want to avoid it. But if you're curious, give it a go. It could be fun. But anyway, we'll move on from that one. And then finished up I listened to it on audiobook, but I finally got to The Underground Railroad by Colson, Whitehead. I've had this on my list for a while, and I'm trying to get to some of these books that I've been wanting to read, you know, for years and years now. And so I finally dug into this one. This is essentially kind of what it talks about during the time of, you know, the Civil War and slavery and the Underground Railroad. But in this book, the Underground Railroad is an actual railroad, like with, you know, trains and conductors and cars and stations, you know. And so that was pretty interesting. And we follow this story through the eyes of Cora. Cora is our main character. She has, of course, been through some horrific events, and we follow her as we learn a bit about her mother and stuff, and grandmother even, kind of a timeline that leads to her birth and her upbringing, the places that she was sold to, places that she lived and worked in, things, and what made her want to try to escape, and then that process of escaping and getting on the railroad, and then the sort of stops along the way and what she experienced along the way. And I really loved this one. Colson Whitehead, his writing is fantastic, and this book, I don't know, it's hard to kind of put into thoughts here, but it was just so you know, I've read several, you know, sort of slave narrative stories, right? But this one, it was definitely just a little different. A lot of it was the same, of course, as far as the experience of an enslaved person, right? But that thought of the railroad existing underneath the country, and folks being none the wiser about it. There's something about that I really liked. And so yeah, I really loved this one. Glad I finally got to it. The writing was just phenomenal. I feel like he probably did a lot of research, and I think that's very noticeable in here as well. So finally got to it. I believe it's already out, maybe. It's been turned into a series or a movie. I forget now. So I can finally watch that now too. I think it's out. I can't remember now, but either way, I can watch it now because I finally watched it. Because I finally read the book. So I highly recommend. And I listened to that on audio, and it was narrated by Bonnie Turpin, who was like one of the best. I love Bonnie Turpin. And she did a fantastic job in this. This might be the best one she's ever done that I've listened to. And all the others are great too. So she did a fantastic job in this one. So I highly recommend the audiobook for it as well. All right. I then listened to another audiobook to The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. I remember reading this back probably in high school. You know, it's just a short story. And, but you know, you read stuff in high school and it didn't quite hit the same, you know. And so I was kind of scrolling through, and I was like, I saw this one pop up, and I was like, oh, you know, it's like less than an hour long. And so I pulled it up, and gosh, it definitely hits different when you're an adult because you have your adult experiences, right, going into this. And this story is still phenomenal. It's so wonderful. It's this woman's sort of just slow sort of decline into madness, yeah. But I think what I noticed as an adult is like, why is she in this situation? Why is she having to deal with this? Her husband is basically keeping her locked in a room, you know. She's just had a baby, and I think she's probably has what we would call postpartum these days, but man, they locked her in this room, and this wallpaper is slowly driving her bananas. And it's just so wonderful. It's so good. So if you, like me read this in high school or something, give it another go and just see what you think about it these days. If you haven't read it as an adult, it's wonderful. So that was great. All right, next up, I finished Wool by Hugh Howey. I am doing this as part of the read-along that Scott over at Book Invasion is doing of this trilogy in preparation for, I believe they're making a movie or series. I can't remember now, but it's being adapted. How about that? And this is another book I've had on my shelf for a while, been wanting to get to. And so when Scott said he was doing this read along, I jumped on that train because that's what I do. I'm a joiner. And I loved this. I thought this was really, really great. And so, of course, I'm so happy to finally get to it. This story, we've got the world, the earth, I don't know, is now, you know, inhabitable. Something has happened to the earth. The air is unbreathable. It's toxic. You can't live above the ground. So humans now live in a silo below ground. And this silo is, I think, like 140 levels down into the earth. And in the center is this large sort of spiral staircase. And then each level sort of juts out into, you know, the dirt. And people live here, and they've set it up where they to get farming, and I mean they've got everything under control. They've got everything, you know, divvied up. Everyone has their own sort of role to play. There's a mayor, there's a sheriff. I mean, it runs pretty well, right? And our main character here is Jules, and she is someone that lives down in the lower levels, and she is basically a mechanic. She's on the mechanical crew that keeps the place running, you know, keeps the sump pumps going and the generators going, keeps the electricity, you know, all that kind of stuff. And through circumstances, she has been nominated or basically hired to be the new sheriff in town. And we follow her story as she's maybe finding some secrets about this silo and the people that run it. And it's so good. It is so good. I don't know, it was just written so wonderfully. The characters giving such depth and heart, and you just really felt for everyone. And you definitely learned about things are not quite what they seem. And I can't wait to dig into the next book, Shift, book 2. And yeah, I'm so happy that I read this one. Let's see, I gave it a 5 stars. Really, really loved it. Enjoyed my time with it so much. It's kind of chunky, but I flew through it. I mean, the writing is such that it just flows, and yeah, loved it. Recommend it. Okay, then I finished up just recently here, Antioch by Jessica Leonard. Okay, this one was quite the ride. Antioch is the name of this small town, and 5 women have now been murdered and then beheaded, and their heads put on a spike. So I mean, that's fun. That's fun. A 6th woman has been abducted. Our main character, Bess, she just works in a local bookstore. She has a hobby of, like, what do you call it, shortwave radio. I think that's what you call it. You know, those people that do radio as a hobby, yeah. And one night she has an incoming, a message on her radio that this woman, the woman that was most recently abducted, she's speaking on the radio, like, asking for help. This starts the story of Bess getting all tangled up into this mystery of this missing woman, Aimee, and she's believing that she's not dead yet. She's trying to save her before she gets murdered and all that stuff. There's wrapped up in this story is like conspiracy theories, law enforcement that might not be on the up and up, some weird, like, religious stuff that's pulled in with this, like, creepy preacher guy. I mean, there's a lot going on in this. Most particularly, though, Bess maybe is not the most, reliable narrator. We're not quite sure by the end of this book if Bess quite knows what's going on. This book really turns into a what in the world's going on type of story, and well, it's a pretty fun ride. I definitely have a couple pretty good spooky scenes in here as well that kind of, like, had me on the edge of my seat. This book, I flew through it. It's super readable. The writing was, definitely just kept me intrigued and kept me flipping the pages. It's not super long anyway, but I was like, I've got to figure out what's going on with this. What is going on with Bess? And is this girl still alive? And the ending is very ambiguous. So if you're not into that, you may not dig this one. But I thought it was a fun ride. I kind of gave it 3.5 stars. It was fun, and the cover's great. It took me a while to notice there's this figure in the back. But if you're looking for a fun kind of psychological thrillery mystery kind of story, I would check it out. I thought it was fun. All right, and then lastly, I finished up A Perfect Mother by Aimee Molloy. Listened to this on audio. I forgot to write down the narrator. This is another kind of psychological thriller, mystery type story. We have this group of moms who were in, like, a mommy group, right? And they connected while they were all pregnant, and then, most of the babies have been born now, and they're still kind of in this group, and they have these mommy meetups and things like that with their babies, and it's a fun thing. This takes place in New York City, Brooklyn area, I believe it was. And one of the moms has this idea of, like, gosh, we need like a mom's night out, like, without the kids. We need to go out, have a little fun, because mom life is hard. And so they get all together in this group, go out to a bar and that kind of thing. And as this night progresses, one of the babies of the moms goes missing, has been abducted. And so this starts this whole whirlwind of who took the baby, why, what's going on. And then we dive into some of the stories of these women. Some of them may have some secrets, and we just find out, what happened with this baby, yeah. And it was I really enjoyed this one. It was a lot of fun. Very twisty turny. This sort of reveal, or whatever, totally took me by surprise. Like, didn't see it coming. So I always appreciate that. And I don't know, it was just a fun ride. So if you're in the mood for a kind of short, quick, fun psychological thriller involving moms, I recommend it because it was definitely a fun ride. So I enjoyed my time with that one. And that's all the books that I finished this past week. I'm currently in the middle of Hailey Piper's collection, Unfortunate Elements of My Anatomy, I think. I'm maybe half-ish way through with that. Really enjoying those stories so far. I started recently Needful Things by Stephen King as part of the sort of Stephen King read-along that's hosted over on Brad Proctor's Discord channel. Kelly Hooked on Books kind of took over the helm for that and listened to the audio. So maybe about a third of the way through. The audio is fun because Stephen King reads it himself. And this is a reread for me. I read this back, a long time ago, high school-ish, maybe even middle school. I don't even know. I remember loving it, but I don't remember a lot about the story. So a lot of this is kind of new for me all over again. So that's been fun to dig back into that. And then I read the prologue of House of Chains by Stephen Erikson, book 4 of the Malazan books. And I think that's all I'm in the middle of now. So I'm excited. I'm still really much enjoying my reading and looking forward to all the books I want to read coming up. I'm going on vacation this next week. We're taking a whole week off. We haven't done that in a while. Going up to the mountains. So I hope to have a lot of reading time. Sit by the creek. Enjoy that mountain air. I'm so looking forward to it. And getting a lot of reading in. And disconnecting a little bit. So I may not be on the socials quite as much next week. But I need to unplug for a bit, I think. So I think that's going to do it for me, guys. I always appreciate you coming in and hanging out with me and talking about these books. Have you read any of these? Let me know. I'd love to know. Did you take a vacation? Have you taken your summer vacation? Have you missed out on your vacation from COVID last year like we did? That's going to do it. Thanks as always. I'll check you in the next one.